Half of the Stanley Cup Final is set. It's 100% hockey with Millard and Shannon. John, it's the Vegas part is set in the Stanley Cup Final. Yeah. I don't know whether you heard that, but I don't know whether it's got outside of the strip yet or not, but the Golden Knights are back to the Stanley Cup Final.
I am just surprised you showed up in time, because I figured you'd be, you and the boys would be out on the town,
Oh, there's some towning going on. Yeah, there's some towning.
I bet. Well, and because heaven knows how long the layoff's going to be, right? We still don't really know when you consider that Montreal and Carolina are going to their game 4, and we know there's going to be at least a game 5 in that series, so that's going to go to at least Friday, and then 3 or 4 days off. So what are we talking about, next Tuesday or Wednesday? If that's the earliest that it could go.
I've got the middle of next week. I don't know whether it's a Tuesday, Thursday kind of thing, but I've got the middle of next week sort of penciled in for my
what I've been trying to do is manage
purposes.
Trying to manage what's going on with the NBA and the NHL, because there have been stories going around that they're going to play on the same nights, which makes absolutely no sense. They should play on alternate nights and keep everybody happy that way. So. Mm-hmm. Which is what
you would think it would go down that path.
When you have the same rights holder, the Disney Corporation, ABC, ESPN, you hope that you hope that they find a way that there's a hockey game one night and a basketball game the next.
There's two sides to a sweep. There's the victors in the Vegas Golden Knights who, by the outside world's viewpoint, pulled off this massive upset. And then there's the Colorado Avalanche angle, a surprise in going out in the minimum. Which angle do you take first?
Well, I'm a cup half full guy, so I think you have to take the Vegas side, and you have to. I was thinking about this before we went on the air. Do you remember our conversation with Glenn Gulletson? I want to say in late February, early March, when the team was playing so well. And I asked him if you peaked too soon. To me, right now, the Golden Knights are playing as well as they have played all season long. I don't care why, whether it's Carter Hart, John Tortorella, Mitch Marner, or Mark Stone, but they're playing their best hockey right now, and it speaks to the challenges of this league and this game when you're playing on such a constant, relentless schedule. And so right now, everybody's clicking. Braden McNabb's pass to Mark Stone was exceptional. He's not Bobby Orr, he's Braden McNabb, but that was a hell of a pass.
There was a great post route, too.
Yeah, exactly. But everything seems to be working right now. And so whether it's the mental part of the game or the physical part of the game or the emotional part of the game, the Golden Knights are in complete sync right now. How long that lasts, no one knows. John Tortorella doesn't know, Kelly McCrimmon doesn't know, George McPhee doesn't know, and the players don't know. But right now they're on a roll. Or what do the kids say? Heater? They're on a heater? Or is that the wagon? Get on the wagon. Is that the wagon?
Wagon.
Okay, sorry. Well,
Hashtag wagon, baby.
Okay. So, and Colorado is in a funk. Colorado's on the opposite side in a funk. And talk about the Makar injury? Yeah, sure. Everybody has injuries. Everybody's got bumps and bruises. Nathan McKinnon playing on Game 4 was amazing to watch. They couldn't buy a goal last night. They couldn't buy one. Carter Hart was spectacular. Colorado did everything they could do to get scoring opportunities, but the combination of Vegas playing really strong in their own zone, not many scoring opportunities were from in front of the net, Daren, were there? There weren't many there. Everything was from the outside, and that's why we play the games in the end. Am I worried about Colorado as a team? No, not really. They'll be fine. I think that there'll probably be some tweaks that they have to do, I think, particularly on their blue line if they want to keep going. But that's the ebbs and flows of professional sports, what we watched through the whole series, and it just so happened that Vegas got on that wagon at the right time.
Go back to Vegas in a second, but were there signs that this was on the way on the Colorado Avalanche side of things because they were 8-1 going into the Western Conference Final. So that was screaming they're on top of their game. But the team was criticized for not beating LA by a bigger margin in game, even though it was a sweep. They got through some wonky victories against Minnesota, 9-6, and then the massive comeback in game number 5. So were there indicators there that a dip was on the way?
I think there were probably more indications in the LA series than there were in the Minnesota series. They were focused in the Minnesota series. They had one bad game.
9-6 and then the comeback.
But
they got 2 wins in very untraditional fashion.
But that's what good teams can do too. When I think that they're 9-6. That means they're a high-powered offense. Well, where was that high-powered offense in this series? I think that the frustration of that first round, where yes, they did sweep, but LA really pushed them. LA really, clamped down on them, and the Avalanche had a tough time fighting through it and adjusting to it, more so than what John Hintz and the Wild did in the second round. I think that they really, the game 3 in Minnesota, where the Wild were the dominant team. I do wonder if there were the indications in that first round series against LA that there were enough adjustments made, and then of course, there was the injury to Makar in the Minnesota series that I think had a huge factor. What really and we talked about this last week. Colorado wasn't as deep as we thought they were supposed to be, particularly on the blue line. They weren't as deep as we thought. And they relied on a lot of young guys, Malinsky particularly, when they got to a point, Sean, Blankenberg. I mean, those guys were put into really tough spots, but I think a lot of people thought that they were going to be a lot deeper on the blue line, and it just didn't manifest itself. So from that perspective, I do wonder what tweaks they're going to have to make in Colorado in order to manage some success in the next couple of years. Some people are saying that their window's closing. I don't buy it. Nathan McKinnon's still young. Cale Makar is still young. Brock Nelson's got to be better. Although, last night there are a lot of those guys gave their all last night, Darren. This was not a case of them giving up. Like in game 3, you could see the emotions get to blowing the lead on the club. Not last night. Last night they were trying to stay through that, and I have some respect for what they did in game 4, even though they lost.
It was always going to be on that power play. I felt they would figure it out, or it was going to cost them. And one of the strangest things in hockey, the best team during the regular season had a very average power play.
Yeah, but that happens, right? That does happen.
Does?
Oh yeah, it does. People actually learn how to adjust.
No, but they were average all year on the power play. It was an outlier for all the talent and success that the Avalanche had. They couldn't push through and gain any traction that mirrored their performance with the man advantage.
But go on NHL Edge and look where all the shots in the power play were from. Nothing in front. Nothing in front. Nathan McKinnon in his favorite spot, the one that he beat Volstead on. That puck didn't even get through last night a couple times. So I think that Vegas did an amazing job of keeping all of the offensive power of the Avalanche to the outside. How many times have we heard coaches talk about between the dots, inside the dots? There was not very much inside the dots through this whole series for Colorado.
And the Western Conference representative in the Stanley Cup Final comes from the Pacific Division.
And in fact, this is 4 years in a row that it's come from the Pacific Division. 4 years in a row.
But this one's different because of the criticism that the division took this year.
But the criticism was internal too. I mean, there's only one person defined this as a pillow fight. There's only one. That was Connor McDavid's definition of what the Pacific Division was like, and everybody jumped on it and thought it was a great slogan, and that became the narrative for the Pacific Division. So you do wonder. Mark Stone's interview with Emily Kaplan last night, I think, was pretty cryptic. In that, because I'll say this: ESPN and ABC, they have this love affair with John Tortorella, as they should. So every second question is about John Tortorella. But she asked him about the Tortorella effect, and Mark said, "Well, you know what? He's got a lot of energy. He's got a lot of he made us focus. The players still play the game." And there weren't as many adjustments as people are making it out to be, is what Mark kind of said, but he focused us, and that's exactly what the players needed at the appropriate time.
Yeah, the right coach at the right time.
Yeah,
and Tortorella came in, and his primary goal, the final 2 weeks, those last 8 games, he was upfront with us saying, "My job is to convince these guys they're as good as they are." Yeah. He kept telling them how good they are. And that sounds overly simplistic, but that's exactly what he did in meetings with the players. You guys don't know how good you are. Then they found some confidence. They did tweak a couple of things in the D zone, neutral zone against Colorado along the way. There's adjustments, which you would expect through a Stanley Cup playoff march. But psychologically, I think this was where John Tortorella had his effect on this group.
Yeah, I can see that. You really can. And then there's Carter Hart. Because that's really, in so many ways, in a column by itself, Daren, that he was that good. I mean, was there any doubt in your mind in the third period that Carter Hart was going to stone the Avalanche? There was none in my mind. You could just see him grow in the net. You could see him. He was active. He was efficient. He did. It to me was an amazing study of how the mental aspect of the game can have a positive effect on that, particularly that position. It's like getting to watching a baseball team play, and you either get a starting pitcher or you get a closer that you're not going to be able to hit them. And Carter Hart was just in that spot last night.
And people are playing catch up on this with Vegas getting to a Stanley Cup final. But the first round, the numbers weren't great, but his performance was really good. And I remember seeing some of the national pundits putting out, Anaheim shot 13% in the first round against Edmonton, and they're going to eat up the Vegas Golden Knights. And Carter Hart became more effective. The numbers reflected the performance, and since the start of the second round, he's been the best goaltender in the Stanley Cup playoffs, with all due respect to Freddie Anderson.
Mm-hmm. So here's the other thing. As you know, I'm not the biggest analytics guy. But if you look at these two series, if you look at the Vegas series, you look at the Montreal-Carolina series, find a way to properly use analytics. Find a way to properly use them, because sometimes the analytics defy what you watch on the ice, defy what you see. And the winner's not decided by analytics. The winner's decided by actual talent of the players and the will to win and the mental focus and the ability to play as a team. Analytics are a tool, no question. But let's not overly emphasize what analytics do particularly at this time of year in the playoffs, because it is so strenuous to play the games. And the mental fortitude and the physical fortitude to play the games overwhelms everything else.
My favorite moment in Game 4 between Vegas and Colorado was during the celebration after Vegas had clinched the Western Conference title. Mitch Marner's emotion in the middle of the ice.
Yeah,
and
that's a good point.
We do not see that side of Mitch Marner very often.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. It was certainly noticeable. It was. You do wonder. It was as much relief, I think, for anything else.
There was certainly a release there.
Yes, yeah, there's no question, and good for him. Good for Mitch, going to a Stanley Cup final. Can you imagine being under the pressure that he's been in his career as a pro, never fulfilling that expectation, and then finally getting that expectation to go and play in the Stanley Cup final? I can't imagine it. I can't imagine.
Everybody's trying to figure out what's different, Mitch. What's changed, Mitch? And I don't think anything's different for Mitch. He's on a deeper team.
He's on a deeper team. I think, and with more
experienced
character.
Team. Yeah.
Character and experience. This is what I'm talking about at this time of year, Daren. The return of Mark Stone will end up being one of the great. If the Golden Knights win the Stanley Cup, the return of Mark Stone to the lineup will end up being one of the key 4 or 5 narratives of this playoff season. It's truly amazing what he's done and how he contributes. And every year we talk about what he does, usually not about on the ice. It's what he brings off the ice and what he brings to the bench and the emotion and confidence he brings. And now he's doing all of that, plus contributing back-to-back goals in games.
Yeah, what a move.
Did you teach him that one?
He may have practiced on me on that one.
Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised. So we got one team in, and we got another team to go.
And we will go to Montreal and check in on the Eastern Conference Final. There's a little bit of hockey talk in this about the series. Can't ignore that. But we also want to go down a path with John Forslund on both his ties to Carolina and that franchise, and what the journey is like when you get to this stage and you're calling these marquee games. What the foundation has been like to build up your resume to get to this moment.
He's a good man. He's worked hard to become, I think, one of the elite play-by-play men in both countries, Canada on Amazon Prime, and in the United States on a national basis as the number 3 guy on TNT, which is great to see. He's a genuine hockey person, and our friends in Seattle are lucky to have him as well as their regular voice to the Kraken.
At the morning skate, you're going to love the sounds of being in the atmosphere, at least through John Forslund, of a playoff game in Montreal. It's John Forslund coming up next on 100% Hockey with Millard and Shannon.
Don't forget to subscribe and like, because it really helps us. It really helps us.
You got a weird thumb.
I do not. It's a perfect thumb.
NHL TV is now on DAZN. Hockey lives here.
Here we go.
Watch every game from every team. The best players in the world. And the coldest plays on ice. Watch up to 4 games at once for the ultimate NHL experience. Sign up now at DAZN.
From the Eastern Conference Final, literally watching the preparations for Game 4 of the Eastern Conference Final. Here's John Forslund. So everybody's watching Montreal, trying to figure out can they mount any attack here? What's the scoop on that?
That's the big question. That's a great question. Thanks for having me, and great to be with both of you again. I don't know. You're not going to beat Carolina playing their game, the game the Hurricanes want to play. you got to somehow force them out of their comfort zone a little bit. And I think it could be as simple as scoring first, which the Canadians have not done in this series. But I think tonight it's of the utmost importance if they can at least do that, establish some lead time, not chase them, not allow them to get into their checking mode and play the way the Hurricanes want to play. That's a trick that nobody really has been able to do in the playoffs so far. And it might not happen tonight.
Did they get any shots on goal in the morning skate?
Oh, they had a ton of them. And they had a lot of life, and there was a lot of noise, and it was a full skate. And so it was an optional last game. So they're going to say the right things. They're going to go about it the right way. But, you know, this Carolina team, as you guys know, is got a burn. You know, they understand where they've been. They understand where they want to go. They understand what their game is supposed to look like. They have an unbelievable buy-in across the board with all their players. So we'll see.
What part of Carolina's team is different than other years in this situation?
Well, in this series, and I'm not sure if they were playing Florida again, and Florida at full health, in Florida the way they want to play, which was always their kryptonite. That was always a problem. It's they're being physical. You know, they're hitting, they're pounding Hudson, they're pounding the Montreal defense on the forecheck. So they're taking a little bit of what was irritating for them to play against in the past and implementing it now. And that to me is a difference. You know, Will Carrier's had a good series. That fourth line, Jankowski, Robinson, and Carrier have played really well. And if you look at the numbers, you look at some of the metrics here, the balance is incredible. So, you know, the way Rod's been able to roll his four lines and utilize that has made a real difference in this series. Jordan Staal continues to be amazing at the age of 37. I can't believe it. You know, he still plays considerable minutes, still dominant in the faceoff circle. They put Ehlers on that line with Staal and Martinook, and that's been great. So they've been able to get through until now without much offensive contribution from their top line. And it's worked. But by and large, you know, in terms of the team game, everybody's playing the same way. Didn't happen in game one. They were uncharacteristically bad. They were making ridiculous decisions they don't make all over the ice, and their best players were their worst. And they had a long day and looked at video for a long time after game one. They made their adjustments, and now it's up to Montreal, if they can, to adjust to them and try to utilize whatever emotion they can get to, because the Canadians have not, you know, they responded quickly in game one, but every game, especially the third game, wasn't a great start. And, you know, they're 2-5 at home. And so you have this incredible atmosphere. The question would be, is that atmosphere putting too much pressure on a young team and they're just not coming out of the chute? Tonight, I don't think they have a choice. If the Canes get control of this game early and dictate the terms again, it's a 5-game series, I think.
You mentioned atmosphere. You were in the building when Claude Lemieux walked in with the torch at one of the exits. What was it like?
Incredible. Absolutely incredible. Everywhere you go, people say this is the loudest building in the NHL. And certainly when you go to Raleigh, they'll tell you that. And the building in Raleigh is loud, and there's a din there, and it's incredible, and it's been that way for years. And they tailgate all day, and they're all, you know, ready to go, so to speak, when they get in the building. Okay, we get that. Here, though,
lubricated. We call that lubricated.
That's correct. That's some do. But in this situation here, as you know, this is a generational thing, and this is just incredible to watch. And when the torch comes in, and I can't wait to see who it is tonight. It's just an unbelievable experience to see live. I think it's pretty good on television too, and they just let the pitchers tell the story. You don't have to say anything. You know, here's the building, here it is. Everybody shut up and just soak it in.
But what an amazing thought on television.
Isn't that great?
Of not speaking. It's an amazing thought.
You don't have to hear. You don't have to, in a lot of places, let the game breathe, right, Johnny? Like that's important. And you know, when the teams are regrouping, and there's a lot of that in this series, and controlled breakouts, and they're rimming the puck back and forth, let the game go a little bit. I try to as much as possible. Not so much on radio. Radio, you can't do it that much. Yeah.
Oh, what kind of feeling do you get from the hometown fans? Is there, we're still riding this thing, or is there a little bit of concern now that that they might be up against a bit of a buzzsaw?
It's a great question, Darren. I think they're obviously concerned, but I also feel that they're in love with this team. Mm-hmm. So whatever happens is going to be okay. They see the future. They see what they have now. They see some of the prospects they have. They love the coach. They love the program. They've done a really good job here, building it to get to this point. Their time will come where they're frustrated with a third round situation. They're frustrated by not winning the cup. Those days will come. But as of right now, this is an enjoyable ride. This is what I witness. It's celebratory. The city's on fire. It's absolutely incredible. And if we get back here for game 6, it'll be off the charts.
Okay, I've got to ask you about Rod Brind'Amour. Nobody knows Rod, I don't think, better than you do. You've known him since he first came to Carolina. Yeah. You saw him snatch the Stanley Cup from Gary 20 years ago, just like the rest of us when we were there. And then we always talk about coaches' shelf life. They're 7 years, 8 years. Why does Rod Brind'Amour have shelf life with this team?
He's about as authentic as you're going to get, and maybe to a fault. In some cases, I'm sure the officials have had enough of him, but he's not afraid to speak his mind. He's not afraid to be him, and that's why it works in Carolina. He's comfortable, really comfortable there. He's part of the landscape in a huge way. He's one person who's gone through the 0-2 situation here in the Molson Miracle. The series where they came here 2 games down in 06 and put a rookie goalie in, Cam Ward, and took off and they won the cup. But I think what I've witnessed with him, John, is this. When he became captain in 05, Francis retired. Ronnie Francis retired. And it was always Ronnie's room, obviously. We had the lockout. And then the season after the lockout, Rod was the captain and then a new coach in Peter Laviolette. But Rod took over the room, and it was his way. Same thing has happened with his coaching career. As you know, he did 7 years as an assistant. He got to scout a little bit, be in player development. Then he went into coaching, and he worked under Kirk Muller. He worked under Bill Peters. He got to take a lot of what they were doing to the good, what they were doing maybe to the bad, put it in his computer. He's a highly intelligent guy. He worked hard at that. I saw it firsthand. No one sees the assistant coaches and what they do unless you're around a team on a daily basis. So you could really get an appreciation for it. So, when Tom Dundon decided to go to Rod Brind'Amour, I don't think it was Tom's, I'll say it, I don't think it was his first choice. I think it was the easy choice to give him a shot. And it's probably the best thing he's ever done in terms of this franchise, because Rod's been able from day one to lay down a culture, get a complete buy-in from the players. He's relatable. He understands every single role. As a top player, he related to fourth line guys, and some of the stars don't. Like some of the stars play the game at a different level. They don't get it. They don't get what those other guys are doing. Rod did, and I think as a coach, it's the same way. And I think he has children that are of the same age of the players today. So he gets today's generation. He understands the why they ask questions, the information they need. It's a perfect storm. He's done an unbelievable job with this. And this is all him. Sure, the players have to execute, but without his footprint, they don't get to where they're at right now.
When he was drafted and played in St. Louis, the storyline on Rod was that no one was harder on Rod Brind'Amour than Rod Brind'Amour. Like he would carry his own issues from game to game, and it would be a real issue for himself. Has he changed that? Is he harder on himself more than anybody else?
I would imagine, of course, I've been removed now for a few years. So 5 years I've been away from this. But I would say that he probably is. He's always a self-evaluator. He's highly critical of his own work. I'll try and say this the right way. He was a downer as an interview when he played, because if you ever gave him any credit for anything, he would just say, well, I did my job. Hey, Rod, congratulations, 4 points. I did my job. Like he was just that way. That's the way he was. And that's why when he played, when the season was over, it might have been a week and he was already back training again, even after winning the Stanley Cup in 06. So I would imagine that same work ethic is there. I saw it when he was an assistant. I saw how much time he put in. And he also is really good at bunkering. He's very good at us against them. And they use that to a T. They use it as an organization. They use it as a hockey club on the ice. It's always us against them. He was really good at doing that, even as a captain.
Take a break. We'll continue with John Forslund in just a second on 100% Hockey with Millard and Shannon.
With the NHL app, you can listen to every NHL game right from your phone. And with home and away broadcast feeds, you choose your way to listen.
And he scores!
Whether you're at work, at the gym, or stuck in traffic, the NHL app puts you right in the action all season long. Every team, every game, everywhere you go. Download the NHL app and never miss a moment.
I love hearing the hoots and the hollers and the pucks against the boards this morning with you. It's so cool.
Yeah, I love morning skates. I really do. Yeah, Eddie Olczyk was kidding me this morning as he said, "Is this your 22nd thousand morning skate, or what is it for you today?" And who knows? But this is it's great to see it. It's not lost on me. I'll tell you that. I enjoy it.
Do you have a particular spot that you go to that you go sit at morning skates?
I get early. I always come really early because I like to see stuff that maybe, an injured guy coming back or two. Those are things you can use, you can see a little bit of what they do early before the actual skate. And the skate's the skate. You can never draw a conclusion. But I like to just get eye contact with players in terms of how they look without numbers, because the game is so fast today, and some of these uniforms are not kind to broadcasting. So you can't rely on shoulder numerals that much. So you want to see the style of skaters, so you get it up here. Yeah.
There are still some places where morning skates are special. Montreal is one of them. Just because of the aura of, I go back to and so do you, John, the days of the Forum, where you could walk 18 paces from Atwater Street right to the Canadiens bench and be on the bench. But they've tried to maintain a little bit of that in Montreal, which makes it, I think there's such a tangible feel for the game of hockey, even in the morning, that it's fun to watch.
Yeah, it is. And when you come here, when you come to Toronto, anywhere in Canada, it has that feel. We're getting away from it a little bit with the great training facilities the teams have now.
Yeah.
One thing the league doesn't cooperate on is, when you're trying to cover a game and there's teams are in two different places, right? That's hard. And this season it was almost ridiculous because of the compressed schedule. And, many of these morning skates were non-existent or optional, right? So that's a different ball game too. But at this level, in the third round and beyond, it's a congregation of everybody that covers the game. It's refreshing. You have story time up in the stands. You try and pay attention to what's going on down there. At least you should. That's hard to do. And it's all part of the fabric of the game. And then you get to the podium situations and you try and digest a few cliches and get on with it.
You mentioned injuries. The injuries on the other side that ended last night were pretty obvious. People fighting through it. Have we really got a sense of who's a little banged up in the Montreal-Carolina series? They've kept it pretty secret, haven't they?
Yeah, the one guy I would wonder about is Aho. to me, he doesn't look like himself. And I keep a keen eye on Carolina all year for obvious reasons. I still enjoy watching them day to day, and I still want to know what I'm talking about when my good friend Trip Tracy calls me on a daily basis and tells me what's going on. And I can chide him a little bit. But anyway, Aho to me, John, doesn't seem like, I know that you can look at his points, but he doesn't seem to have the same drive in his skating. I don't know. So he's either playing below level for him or he's hurt. So that's one guy there. I don't know. There's some speculation about Noah Dobson on the other side. I don't know if he's fighting through something. I think they expect more out of that player in terms of his skill set. I think he could be better than he has been against Carolina because he's a puck transporter and he can move it. They're going to have to get to that tonight. But other than that, no, I think this one here doesn't have a lot of that intrigue with injury and all that attached to it as of yet. No.
Boy, I would have loved them to pull out those Whaler uniforms and wore those just once during this series.
Would be great, wouldn't it? Yeah,
that
would be great. Yeah, it. I mean, I still remember May 1st, 1992. Russ Courtnall double overtime. Ivan Corvo hit the crossbar and Patrick Waugh in the old Forum. I remember the walk I had over to the rink that day was Game 7, and was Jimmy Roberts was the coach, and beloved Canadian, right? They loved him here. Multiple cup winner in Montreal. You should have heard the fans. He wanted to walk. I was getting a cab from the Sheridan to the Forum, and he goes, "Let's walk." And so we walked on a beautiful day, and they were yelling at him, and he was laughing, and he loved it. And that was a special game. And at that time, it was the only time the Whalers had played in the month of May. The game ended on Courtnall's goal and Frank Pietrangelo at 12:01 a.m. May 1st, 1992. Yeah.
and sorry, John, just going to pull on the string a little bit. There's got to be some heartstrings being tugged a little bit for you in this series, being back around Carolina, a franchise that you worked with for so long.
Yeah, it is. Great question again. It's different. It's weird. It's not, listen, things have worked out great for me since I left the Hurricanes. I want to say that first. Professionally, I can't be treated any better than I am in Seattle, and the network opportunities I've been able to get since have been great. So that's all well and good. But when you're with a team that long and you do the work away from the booth that you do, and you establish something that you believe you had a part in, and then it's taken away from you, it hurts. And my family has tried to navigate this whole situation the best we can. Still have my home in Raleigh, have a little place out in Seattle. We go to Maine in the summertime, and my kids are grown, but they're all on the East Coast. So my wife isn't going to completely come out for a hockey season in Seattle full time. So that part of it's not easy. But the part that kicks me is when I go back into the building, it's a different situation now for me. And I've been long gone now. And there's another era of fans who watch the Hurricanes in Raleigh who maybe don't even know that I existed, which for them, that's no problem. For me, it kind of is weird. So I think that's the best way, Daren, to describe it. It's kind of a weird feeling, I was very emotionally attached to that organization and still am with many of these guys. Now, when I did go in the locker room before game 1 in the morning, and the players that are still here, when I was here, the reaction I get makes me feel good. And I have great friends behind the bench, and Rod and Jeff Daniels and Timmy Gleason and their video coach, Chris Huffine, who made a great call here the other night. Trip, love all those guys. But it's not the same, so you got to get used to it. I don't know if I ever will. That's up to me. And I'm not looking for any sympathy cards here. I'm just telling you how I feel. And when I go to Raleigh now and I do games, it's a different feeling. It really is.
I want to know who chides Trip Tracy more, you or me?
I think we both do. I think it's pretty even, and he needs that, because if he's not, we got to keep him sharp, right? We got to keep him guessing. We got to keep him guessing, because he'll get carried away, and we got to make sure that he's in tune and ready to go. But he's done a great job there. He really has. He's grown professionally, and the fans love him. And his insight is tremendous. It really is. And he's a Caniac himself. God love him.
He is now. That's for sure.
Yep.
I got to tell you, so I probably listened to Tripp and Mike more during the playoffs, because I listen on the radio. And then every once in a while, when Tripp crosses the line, there's a text saying, "Boy, oh boy, pretty hard on the refs tonight." And then there'll be while the game's on, there'll be a little bit of a dialogue about what's right and what's wrong, and how to manage that. Yeah,
they've had, Mike and Tripp have had a remarkable run of great hockey, and that's when it's great for everybody. It's a hard job when you go 10 years without making the playoffs, and you're telling that story. And we're going through it now in Seattle. There's a journey there, and the narrative from day one of camp to the end of the season, might take a detour south. And if it does, how are you going to get your fans through it with some level of excitement and some level of interest without offending anybody, getting yourself fired, or, putting the fans in a position where we can't listen to this or watch it anymore. But good for them, because, they got through the transition 2019, 2020, and then got through that tough period of COVID and all that with this team. And now it's just been an unbelievable run. And they expect to be in the Stanley Cup Final. And that's a good position to be in as an organization.
So here you are there. You talked about your time with the Kraken. You talked your time with the TNT. But in the last 2 years, you have become what I would describe as an honorary Canadian. You have become on Monday nights the voice of NHL hockey on Prime for Canada. I'm curious. Do you approach being on Canadian TV differently than you do in the U.S.?
No, I don't. And I've had my style. I hope for, you refine it as you go along, right? And you've been great to me in my career. I want to say that here. You've been great to me in my career over the years with advice and what you pick up when you watch a game, because to broadcasters, it's priceless. John Shannon gives you a text and says something that's really positive. It's a great thing. If he gives you a little criticism, you take it to heart and you change it. That's how I feel about you. But I will say that I hope I haven't changed much of my style. I know when I interviewed for the job with everybody at Amazon, they asked me one question that's never been asked of me in my entire career. Tell us how you call a hockey game. I've worked for a variety of people, including, great relationship with NBC. But, I was never, asked by anybody there my theories on how the game should be presented on television. So we talked it was a 90-minute Zoom. It was a great call. And I felt really good, maybe about getting the gig, but also that no one has ever asked me. I told my wife, I said, no one's asked me that question ever. And so I was able to pontificate about how I feel about hockey, how I feel about the game, and how it should be called, in my opinion. And that's how I do it. I know there's different styles for different people. And I know that, we're trying to do a lot of different things, it seems, in a game that has an absolutely incredible chaotic pace. And sometimes that's impossible. But I like to do a classic call of the game with a tenor of voice that goes up and down with line rushes and player identification and excitement. And the people at Amazon have let me do that. And they put together an unbelievable group of people led by our producer, Mark Askin, and everybody else that's involved in that show. And it's about the game. That's the thing. Sometimes in the States, it's not about the game. It's about other things, and that's not really a negative. It's just the landscape. Okay. But when we started this project with Amazon, we're coming now into Canadian markets, you better be good. And I hope we are. You better be knowledgeable, prepared. I hope we are. And it better be exciting. Otherwise, it's too easy for the new guys on the block to be cast aside, right? So we kind of jumped in there with respect. And sure, I'm from Springfield, Massachusetts, but I grew up a hockey fan from as long as I can remember, and I wanted to do this job for as long as I remember. And luckily, I've been able to do it. But I've also honed my skills over the years by listening to Dan Kelly and listening to Bob Cole and Mike Emmerich and Fred Cusick, which was a local announcer for me as a boy. You know, those are the people that influenced how I call a hockey game when I started calling games when I was 10 years old.
And Bob Wilson, right? Bob Wilson.
And Bob Wilson, yes. Jim Gordon a little bit from the Rangers. Those games would come in. So, you know, you get influenced by a lot of people. You try not to imitate. You want to be your own guy. But, you know, later in my career, Doc became a mentor for me, you know, and that's something that I didn't think was going to happen, but did. And to this day, I really appreciate that. But, you know, Bob Cole for me was, and I'm not alone here, just absolutely incredible, you know, because he had that ability of, you could be in the other room and understand what's happening. You know, you could understand the moment, and he punctuated big moments the right way. You know, that's a trick. That's not easy to do.
How far back would you have to go? 5 years, 10 years to notice a difference in how you called the game?
Yeah, you know, I think the speed of the game has changed tremendously. So I think if we go back to our old broadcast meetings 20 years ago, we were trying to figure out how to tell stories, which we still do, and they're vital. And you're a great storyteller, Daren. But within the fabric of the game now, that's hard to do, you know, because there's stuff happening all the time. You can't put your head down ever when the game's ongoing, because the puck is turned over and they're gone. And there's a bounce. And you look at the way the team that just took the ice down here, the Hurricanes, right? The shot volume they have. Pucks are coming from everywhere. As an old schooler, I had to get used to a style of play like that, because what used to be point to point, down low, back up top shot really isn't the case anymore. You know, it's okay. It's a pass across ice. It's a tough angle. You're flinging it at the goalie so that the rebound comes out and they're going to get a scoring chance. And you're trying to just flood shots at the goalie all the time. So I think the game has changed. So the call has changed a little bit, but I think for the better, you know, because the feedback, at least I get, most importantly from fans, is that's what they want to hear. You know, they want to, I use this word, ice. You know, you want to inform, you want to be concise, and you want to entertain. That's what you want to do. That's not rocket science. That's always been the case. But being concise to punctuate moments in time with the fastest game in the world, you have to work at that. And you got to be entertaining, too. We got to have some fun while we do these games.
Fun?
And that...
Fun.
Fun?
Fun.
What is that?
Fun's fun, John. You've been known to have some fun.
Oh, hey, believe it or not, people don't think I have fun, but I have fun every day.
Oh, yes, you do. Yes, you do.
Millard thinks I'm a crotchety old guy, you know, so.
Well, a crotchety old guy that has fun.
There you go. That's a good point.
It's doable. That's what I am.
Yeah, no. First time I met John was the PR guy for the Whalers. Yep. Working for Emil Francis.
Yep. He was my first analyst.
Really?
So I went there after 7 years in the American League. I went to Hartford to become an analyst and a hockey information director for the hockey department and work with Chuck Gayton. But the PR director at the time, Phil Lang, had decided to quit, falling out with the ownership group or whatever it was. They offered me the PR job, which I had done in the minors. And it was a job with a lot of security benefits, which I didn't have. higher pay, which I didn't have. So I took it. I still wanted to broadcast, and I told them that. But then when the Carmanis group came in, Jimmy Rutherford came in after the lockout of 94, the season got abbreviated 48 games, and there was what was a 20-game over-the-air package on the ABC affiliate in Hartford became one game. And 47 games were on Sports Channel. And that one game was at Madison Square Garden, and my color analyst was Emile Francis.
Wow.
And I walked to the building with him, and that was incredible to walk into MSG with the cat. That was great. We did the game together. Jimmy really liked it. Some things happened, and Jimmy gave me my first opportunity to do this in 1995 on television. Yeah.
You know, we have a lot of listeners and viewers in British Columbia who are not very happy with Jim Rutherford these days. But I'm a Rutherford fan. I'm a Rutherford friend, as you are.
Yeah.
What is he? And he's now away from what the Canucks are doing. What do you think Rutherford's legacy as a hockey person will be?
He's a true builder. He belongs in the Hall of Fame where he's at. But he is a guy who understands, again, the framework of not only the on-ice product, but the people that work in his hockey department, the scouts, the operations people, the people that work for the team. He's a special guy for me. I owe a lot to Jimmy. Jimmy was hard on me. Jimmy taught me a lot. Jimmy didn't like the fact that I had representation at a young age, wanted to negotiate with me one-on-one, and I wasn't any good at that. But he taught me how to do that. He taught me how to withstand criticism and not take it personal and be better for it. As a young guy, you know, I was a soft shell. We had an owner there that loved the game, but he would listen and watch and have a lot to say, and I would fight back, and Jimmy was always in my corner, and I appreciated that. So, you know, when you look at people like myself, you look at what he did for Paul Maurice and many, many, many others. He's exceptionally loyal, and we're going to lose loyalty at some point here. It's going to get kicked to the curb, and maybe we'll rely on AI for loyalty someday. I hope not. But you know, that's what he has. Within the framework of a cutthroat business, a business where, you know, you can be disloyal very easily. He would always be that, right? Mm. And so he's okay. And I know that a lot of people in Vancouver, you know, they have to turn the page and move on. But you know what? He was always a fixer. And for years with the Hurricanes, he was always going season to season to sell tickets. You know, they couldn't commit to until they had to get to where they're at now, you know, that 10-year period of no playoffs. But he had left by then, and he was in Pittsburgh. But before then, it was about going out and getting players like Alexander Semin, who would, you know, somehow be the thing, and it didn't work out really. But that one case, get to that guy that's going to make it different, so you could sell tickets. But Jimmy Rutherford's a great hockey man, and I love him.
How did he help you handle criticism? Just curious about that angle.
Say that again, Daren.
How did he help you handle criticism and walk you through the criticism part of
it? He helped me understand that. Listen to the criticism, because even if you think it's wrong, it might be entirely right, or there might be pieces of it that are right. So utilize it. He's a very positive thinker. One Christmas, he gave everybody in the organization one of these framed thoughts for the day. It's a long, long narrative about positive thinking, you know, about what, and it all had like hockey analogies. So it's like, you know, give me the strength to get through a situation when the coach takes me out of the lineup. You know what I mean? Stuff like that, but apply it to life. So he was good about that, because I'd get all riled up and he'd let it die down and bring me in and we talked. And so I think he made my skin a lot thicker, which, as you know, you need in this business. Like you have to have this. in our broadcasting business, it's completely subjective. You know, you might be working for some group, they love you, and then all of a sudden somebody else comes in controlling it. No, we don't care for that. Why? Well, I just don't. That's my reason. Okay, so you move on. Well, he was able to help me, do that. And he was very encouraging, with my work, because he enjoys watching the game. So he would always, build my confidence too, those were good days. Yeah.
Will I see you at the Stanley Cup Final?
Yes. I'm calling the Stanley Cup Final with Eddie Olczyk and Billy Jaffe for Sports USA. Yes.
Makes me happy.
Thank you, Dan.
Around all of you, but especially being able to cross paths with you. Doesn't happen enough. Really appreciate your time today, especially during a busy morning for you. Enjoy the call, and we'll catch you down the road next week.
All right, guys. Keep up the great work. Thanks for having me.
John Forslund, back with 100% Hockey with Millard and Shannon right after this.
NHL TV is now on DAZN. Hockey lives here.
Here we go.
Watch every game from every team. The best players in the world. And the coldest plays on ice. Watch up to 4 games at once for the ultimate NHL experience. Sign up now at DAZN.
I don't know who the player was. I'd love to know who the player was that was hooting and hollering like that. Hooting and hollering out on the ice.
My bet is Seth Jarvis.
Might have been.
Yeah.
Because it did transition a little bit from the Montreal skate over to the Carolina skate.
The fascination for me is that, I don't, when we end up doing and traveling for 30 or 40 years, doing all of this, like Forslund's done, like a few of us have done, and you do go to the arena and you still get a buzz walking into a skate. You really get to appreciate and understand how much these players love to play hockey. And just how much fun they have still. I mean, we're watching the World Championships in Switzerland as well in Canada. By the way, Thursday is Canada USA in the quarterfinals. Big comeback, Canada. I wonder what pressure there's going to be there. Anyway, my point is that these guys, even the money's huge, and it's life changing. But these guys still love the game. And you see that almost as much at the morning skate, Daren, that you do during the game. Because the competitive juices take over for the game. But the morning skate is just going out
morning
to the
skate
pond.
and practices is where you need those energy guys.
Yeah. But my point is that you can see the love of the game there almost as much as anywhere else, if not more. And that's what I love to go on the morning skates. In the old days, you could sit on the bench and talk to the players. It was easy to do, whether it be in Edmonton or Toronto or Vancouver or Montreal. You could actually sit on the bench, and the guys would come over and get a drink, and half of them would squirt you in the face with water, and then they'd laugh, and then they'd jump back into a drill, and life was good. But you really got an appreciation of how much these professional athletes, these well-conditioned guys, were still kids at heart, and how much they loved to play the game. And nothing better than putting on their skates and getting a stick and a puck and wheeling around the ice. It was so much fun to watch.
It's funny you bring up standing on the bench. I was a cup reporter in Winnipeg, CKND. Just got a job there. Joe Pascucci and Gene Principe. And one of my first assignments was to cover a Jets practice at the old Winnipeg Arena. And we're standing on the bench during practice, which wasn't foreign. We all did that, whether junior or wherever you were. That wasn't new. But I'm standing there on the bench, and a guy skates up and stops because they were doing a flow drill, and takes off his glove and says, "Daren, welcome to town. Good to meet you. I'm Eddie Olczyk." That was the first time I met Eddie Olczyk. Was during a team practice because I was standing on the bench.
So in a similar vein, when Bob Johnson took over the Calgary Flames, and we were doing all of the local shows. We were doing the national shows. And I wasn't a reporter. I was the producer, but lots of times we didn't have reporters because we were creating and building content for all the broadcasts. And we needed a clip from a player, whether it would be Jim Poplinski or Lanny McDonald or Neil Sheehy or Joey Mullen.
What about Bearcat Murray?
No, you never talk to the trainer. You just said hello to Bearcat. You just say hello to Bearcat. But when Bob Johnson was the coach, you always made sure the first interview you did at the boards was Bob Johnson. Because if you walked in and said, "Hey, Lanny, come on over. I need a couple of clips about Daryl." Hey, Bob would blow the whistle and say, "Lanny, get back here." But if you brought Bob Johnson over first, and you did two questions with Bob Johnson, thanks, Bob. Hey, who else do you need? So that became the running gag, and half the time I would tell the cameraman, just don't hit record, because I don't want to waste the tape, and don't waste your time. I'm going to ask Bob a couple of inane questions, and then we're going to get the players, and then I need you to record. So
that's pretty smart. It's knowing your audience, right?
What's that?
That's just knowing your audience, who you're talking to.
Yeah, absolutely. When Bob was there, Bob was supposed to be the focus first. Once you understood that was his old call. I'm sure that was out of his years at Wisconsin, and he was the face of the program.
I was a little concerned the other night because I've called this gentleman's sweep for Carolina, and it was in jeopardy. It certainly pushed overtime, but then with the goal before it was called back.
Yeah.
I think you're going to see an assertiveness by Carolina. And
yeah, you know what? I don't think it's about Carolina. I think this one's about Montreal, and I think finding a way to get, again, don't live on the outside. Go to the dirty areas. Go to the front of the net. I think we're going to have to see Marty St. Louis, although his team's played well. They're going to have to be a lot more aggressive. And you do wonder, because to your point, if it's exactly like a 3-2 grind game, I think benefits Carolina more than it does Montreal.
Congratulations, Kitchener Rangers, into the Memorial Cup Final.
Well, they've
record. Nobody's played for the Memorial Cup in this format in the final more than the Kitchener Rangers.
Well, they're a machine right now. They're an absolute machine. And Oiler fans are going to be angry because one of the best players on the ice has been Sam O'Reilly, and he's a huge factor. And he was the guy they traded with Tampa to get Ike Howard out of there, and O'Reilly's just going to go to Tampa in the next couple of years and become a factor there. So,
well, if Ike Howard follows through, it's good.
Yeah, he's had a good world championship.
You're always focused on the guy that goes the other way and having success. You don't focus on the guy coming in. That's one thing I've noticed about you. Just you're always focused on the wrong thing.
No, I'm focused on trying to keep you out of trouble. Is what I'm focused on.
Well, I got to go back.
You made this gentleman's sweep thing. Now you're going to have to back it up. Yeah.
Well, right now I got to fly because the party continues to happen. Dave Gosher, Ashley Weiss, we got it going on down there. Nides is holding the table, so I got to get back to the group. We're shaking this thing up.
Nides. Oh my God.
Gosh. Actually, doesn't have a nickname. Oh, a Shawley. Dave Gosher calls her a Shawley.
I'd call her AV. I'd call her AV.
Yeah, it's never caught on. I don't know why. That's a good point. Maybe I'll try to bring that back. The contribution of John Shannon.
Well, I mean, she's a talented broadcaster, so.
I said somebody the other day about Shanny, and they went, "Oh no, he doesn't live there anymore." And I went, "What?" Oh, they thought I was talking about Brendan Shanahan.
Yeah, I know. I've told you this story. Brendan Shanahan always come when we were around. He'd say, He says, by the way, you're not Shanny. I'm Shanny.
I'm Shannon.
I said, I know. I don't want to be Shanny. Don't call me Shanny.
Next time, we'll see where this Eastern Conference Series is as the Vegas Golden Knights await their opposition in the Stanley Cup Final. Thanks for joining us on 100% Hockey. What do you got to do?
Dig deep.
Thumbs up.
Oh, thumbs up.
Again, that's a weird thumb.
Oh, it's not. It's bad camera.
It's a stumpy thumb. Talk to you next time. John's mad.
Don't go there.